see, welcome to Missed Again, where every missed shot is a lesson. It's not about perfect play, it's about my struggles and honest progress. You regularly hear pool players say you need to hit harder or softer for cue ball control. When you ask them how hard you should hit, they often say it comes with experience. While this advice is technically true, it is not useful as it doesn't tell you how hard to hit the cue ball. First, you must understand that it's not so much about how hard you hit the cue ball, it is more accurate to say how much speed you put on the cue ball. There's a distinction as a good soft stroke with smooth acceleration can generate more speed on the cue ball than a hard punching hit on the cue ball. In this video, we're going to discuss cue ball speed. As the focus is on cue ball speed to achieve cue ball control or position, we're not going to bring in spin. So every shot demonstrated will be a center ball hit. If you use only a center ball hit but have mastery over speed control, you will go much farther in your game than hitting with side spin, especially as an advanced beginner or intermediate player. In general, learning how to control cue ball speed is essential to direct the cue ball to a specific position for a shot on the next ball, whether you use spin or not. Let's look at how much default speed you should put on a shot without worrying about where the cue ball will end up. Some players shoot hard regardless of the shot. It could be because they regularly play on poorly maintained tables that might not be level or have a lot of chalk build-up. You need to be very precise with your shot if you hit hard all the time. The problem arises when it comes to long shots. If you hit hard and are off by just a bit, the object ball can rattle out of the knuckles of the pocket. By default, if cue ball position is not critical, you should always try to play pocket speed. That is the speed needed on that particular table to just get the object ball into the pocket. This allows you to shoot more controlled shots, and if you happen to be off, the object ball can still hit the knuckles of the pocket and drop in. However, in 95% of the shots you shoot, you will need to control the cue ball to play position after pocketing an object ball. One way to learn how much speed you need to put on the cue ball is to calibrate 3 different stroke speeds and build it into your muscle memory. First, set up a cut shot where you have some distance from the pocket and the object ball, and from the object ball to the cue ball. This is a half ball hit, or approximately a 30-degree cut angle. Shoot what you would consider a medium stroke on the ball with a center ball hit. Everyone has a different perspective of what a soft, medium, and hard stroke is. You need to discover this on your own as part of this calibration process. Try to pocket the ball and see where the cue ball ends up after the shot. In my first shot, the cue ball hit the short rail and rolled to the center of the table. Repeat the exact same shot with the same medium stroke 2 times and see if the cue ball ends up in approximately the same area both times. In my case, my medium stroke for this shot consistently brings me to the center of the table. If your cue ball ends up in completely different positions on the table, you need to repeat the whole process until your 3 cue ball positions are grouped in the same area. Once you have done this successfully, you will repeat the entire process with the same shot, but with a soft stroke. For my first shot, my cue ball ended up just past 1 diamond. I'll try to target the next 2 shots to about 1 diamond away from the short rail. Once again, if you can do this consistently with 3 shots in a row, you have calibrated your soft stroke. Finally, you will repeat the entire process with the same shot, but with a hard stroke. However, there will be a difference in how the cue ball behaves with a hard stroke. For the medium and soft strokes, the cue ball will have a natural forward roll. However, for a hard stroke, the cue ball will slide towards the object ball, and then the cue ball will slide off the tangent line after contacting the object ball towards the rail to the left. If you're not familiar with this concept, watch my video on where the cue ball will go, linked above or in the description. Try to pocket the object ball with a hard stroke and see where the cue ball ends up. Repeat the process 2 more times and see if the cue ball ends up in the same area. My 3 hard strokes were generally grouped together, and I have a good idea where the cue ball will end up off a hard stroke for this shot. Once again, if you cannot get a tight grouping of your cue ball with 3 shots in a row, repeat the whole process until your 3 cue ball positions are grouped in the same area. If you successfully complete the calibration exercise with your soft, medium, and hard strokes, you'll find that you will have a good feel for how hard you need to hit the cue ball to control it for similar shots. Let's test this with some examples. In this layout, we need to pocket the 9 ball and get in position for the 8 ball. From the previous calibration exercise, we know a soft stroke will not be the correct shot as the cue ball will end up in front of the shot line for the 8 ball. We also know the hard stroke will not be the ideal shot. While the cue ball ending position would be a good position to take the 8 ball, we know the path that the cue ball will take with a hard stroke, and there is an unnecessary risk that the cue ball may collide with the 8 ball. So the correct shot is to use a medium stroke to send the cue ball off the shot rail back up towards the center of the table. I think I hit a little too hard, but I prefer a further shot than a short shot in this case. This allows me to take a relatively straightforward shot on the 8 ball. Here's another layout, and I'm sure you know exactly which shot should be taken to get a good position for the 8 ball. A soft hit will send the cue ball near the shot rail for an easy shot on the 8. Finally, we have a layout where the 8 ball is all the way on the other side of the table. I think some players will instinctively feel that a hard stroke is the correct shot to take as it covers the distance needed, and a soft or medium stroke will result in a long steep cut shot on the 8 ball. Let's shoot with a hard stroke and see what happens. You can see if I had hit any harder, the cue ball would have rolled past the shot line, making the shot on the 8 ball impossible. And in this current position, it is a difficult shot to stretch across the length of the table, plus it is a steep cut angle. The correct shot to take is actually a slightly harder than medium stroke. I don't want to hit so hard that the cue ball stuns off the object ball. I want to maintain the natural forward roll of the cue ball, but at the same time cover more distance than my regular medium stroke. So I shoot slightly harder than a medium stroke. The cue ball rolls past the center of the table and in position for an easy shot on the 8 ball. As you can see, once you calibrate your soft, medium and hard strokes, you can shoot softer or harder as needed to get the cue ball in a desired position. Once you've calibrated your hits with one cut angle and distance, repeat the process with different angles at varying distances on different parts of the pool table. This is important as the cue ball travels shorter or further based on the thickness of the cut angle. For example, look at the distance the cue ball travels with a half ball hit after hitting the long rail. Now, if the shot was fuller like a 3/4 ball hit, more energy will be transferred from the cue ball to the object ball, causing the cue ball to travel a shorter distance. And if the shot was thinner, like a 1/8 ball hit, the cue ball will travel much further off the long rails as it retains more kinetic energy. Well, that's it. I hope this video has provided some insight into determining how much speed you should put on the cue ball and how you can calibrate your own stroke to achieve the desired level of control. It's not just about hitting 10,000 balls, but hitting 10,000 balls with the correct intent and purpose. Let me know if you have any other tips on improving the feel for cue ball speed. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like the content in general, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. It will really help the channel out. You can also support the channel by checking out my merch store at missagainpool.com. Every miss makes us better, so let's grow together. My name is JC. Try not to miss again.